So once again, the flux, that's what it looks like. It's just a granular substance. So when we're talking about granular flux, that's what it is. That's what it looks like. Like I said, very similar to kitty litter in regards to its consistency and its material properties. So here's a look at what it looks like. We've got a flux hopper there, and you can see this is pretty mechanized. Nobody is holding this. This whole mechanism is supported by an arm, a mechanical arm, and generally we rotate our parts. So the part will rotate underneath our submerged arc welding head. That's what we call it. There's some wire feeders in there that are going to draw the wire down and force it into the weld joint. The electricity is going to travel through that same path and into the weld joint. The electrical current's going to go into the weld joint with the through the wire, and it's all going to be covered by the granular flux. Here's another view of the process, a little cleaner, but you can see we've got the flux and then our finished weld bead. We're going to get a solid slag that's going to form on our weld bead. So once again, this is just a view of the process of submerged arc welding. Another side view of the same thing. You can see where we've got the wire coming down and we've got the flux and we've got our base metal, and the arc is underneath the submerged arc, or underneath the submerged arc welding granular flux. With this process, we can have more than one arc. There are some times where we'll have, depending on what you're welding, you can have multiple wires feeding into the same weld joint. And I haven't dealt much with the multiple arc situation, but there are companies out there that make multiple arc delivery methods for submerged arc welding, where you can just lay down a lot of weld metal in a hurry. I think the people that make barges and also that make water tanks, like the big water tanks that you'll see cities use, it says the Midville, Ohio or whatever, those big water tanks. I'm pretty sure that those guys use submerged arc welding to make these really, really big welds on those water tanks. Here's another set of pictures you can see. That picture in the bottom is, a lot of times we'll get our flux. The flux can come in either pails, buckets, or big drums, or you can get it in bags like this. Depends on who you're ordering it from, how much you're ordering. You can get a lot of flux. And you can see these are big welds. You can see this is a big on the lower right hand side. I don't know what they're welding, but it's something big. So that's generally what we use it for. And then they just roll these things on a big set of rollers and just deposit a lot of weld metal into the weld joints. So for the filler metal, as I've stated before, we've got a bare wire and a granular flux. And there's a lot of different wire flux combinations. The system to identify what filler metal you're putting into a weld joint is really complicated. I've messed with it a few times, and I haven't dealt with it in probably a decade and a half or so. But anyways, just know that it is complicated. It can be figured out, but it's not as simple as gas metal arc welding or a shielded metal arc welding. They're classification systems. But you can get a lot of different wire combinations, flux wire combinations with submerged arc welding.
Here's a few pictures of the submerged arc welding process in use. As you can see, it's generally bigger stuff. You put it in a positioner or a roller. Once again, it can be handheld, but you can get deposition rates that are up to 10 times faster than shielded metal arc welding. So this is a good way to really put down quality metal and get the stuff to X-ray. And once you get it set up and going, it should be a pretty easy ride. Although I had a guy I worked with years ago, an old welder, tell me somebody that doesn't know what they're doing on submerged arc welding create enough rework to keep 10 men busy for a week. So just something to keep in mind there too. I thought that was kind of a profound statement on his part, but I guess he'd been through it a few times with the submerged arc welding. But once again, yeah, take a look at these pictures, and they just show you, you know, the wire, the kitty litter slash flux, and big positioners.
So here's a couple of pictures of submerged arc welding. You can see on the right hand side they're doing a test plate for a welder qualification, actually a welding procedure qualification, but it gives you a pretty good idea of what's going on. They're welding right there. You cannot see an arc. That's one of the signature things of submerged arc welding. You don't have to wear a welding hood. On the left you can see a finished weld, and these welds are just beautiful. They're just gorgeous, and they generally x-ray really, really well.